The Unbreakable Mind. Part 1. The Lie You Were Taught. There is a silent belief controlling your life. You didn't choose it. You didn't question it. But it has shaped your confidence, your ambition, your relationships, and the limits you accept. The belief is this: people are either talented or they're not. That belief is poison. You were praised for being smart. You were labeled as gifted or not academic. You were told some people are natural leaders. Some people are born disciplined. Some people just have it. And without realizing it, you began to protect your identity instead of growing it. When success defines who you are, failure becomes a threat to your identity. That is the prison. A fixed identity creates fragile confidence. You avoid challenges that might expose weakness. You quit when effort feels uncomfortable. You compare yourself constantly. You feel secretly threatened by other people's success. Because deep down, you believe ability is static. But here is the truth. Your brain is not fixed. Your personality is not fixed. Your discipline is not fixed. Your courage is not fixed. Your potential is dynamic. Modern neuroscience proves the brain rewires itself through effort. Neural pathways strengthen with repetition. Struggle is not evidence of incapability. It is evidence of growth. Difficulty is not a verdict. It is a signal. Yet most people interpret effort as proof they're not good enough. They say, "This is hard," which really means, "Maybe I'm not naturally talented." They say, "I'm just not confident," which really means, "I haven't trained confidence yet." They say, "That's not my strength," which really means, "I don't want to feel uncomfortable." The unbreakable mind understands one core principle. Everything can be trained. Confidence is trained. Focus is trained. Resilience is trained. Leadership is trained. Emotional control is trained. You are not born strong. You become strong. But here is where most people misunderstand growth. Growth is not positive thinking. Growth is identity expansion. If you believe you are someone who quits when it's hard, your brain will search for evidence to confirm that story. If you believe you are someone who adapts, learns, and persists, your brain will search for solutions instead of escape routes. Your identity determines your behavior, and your behavior reinforces your identity. This loop is either your cage or your weapon. Let me tell you something powerful. Failure is not the opposite of success. Failure is data. Every mistake carries instruction. Every setback reveals strategy gaps. Every uncomfortable emotion reveals where you need skill. Emotion is information, not instruction. Most people obey emotions. The unbreakable mind analyzes them. When fear appears, it asks, "What skill am I lacking?" When envy appears, it asks, "What standard do I want to reach?" When shame appears, it asks, "What belief about myself needs upgrading?" This is mental strength. Not pretending fear doesn't exist, but refusing to let it decide your future. You must understand something critical. Your comfort zone is not safe. It is shrinking. Every time you avoid discomfort, your tolerance decreases. Your world becomes smaller. Your goals become safer. Your standards lower. And slowly, almost invisibly, you begin to live beneath your potential. The unbreakable mind does the opposite. It seeks calibrated discomfort, not chaos, not burnout, but intentional stretch. Because stretch rewires identity. When you do something difficult and survive, your self-image upgrades. When you persist longer than you thought possible, your standards elevate. When you choose discipline over impulse, your confidence compounds. Confidence is not built by affirmations. It is built by evidence. Evidence of effort. Evidence of endurance. Evidence of self-control. And here is the shift that changes everything. Stop asking, "Am I good at this?" Start asking, "Am I willing to train at this?" That single shift transforms insecurity into power. You are not behind. You are untrained. You are not incapable. You are inexperienced. You are not weak. You are underdeveloped. And development is always available. The world rewards those who improve, not those who are instantly impressive. Talent opens the door. Training keeps it open. But even talent without training collapses. Your mission from this moment forward: detach your identity from outcomes. Attach your identity to effort. Become someone who values growth over validation. Because validation is addictive. Growth is transformative. And when you choose growth consistently, something extraordinary happens. You stop fearing judgment. You stop fearing embarrassment. You stop fearing being seen trying. And that is when your real potential begins. This is only the beginning. The unbreakable mind is not built in motivation. It is built in repetition. And in the next chapter, we will dismantle the real enemy of growth. Ego. Part 2. The ego trap. Ego is not confidence. Ego is protection. It protects an image. It protects a reputation. It protects a fragile story about who you think you are. Confidence says, "I can learn." Ego says, "I must already know." Confidence says, "I was wrong." Ego says, "That wasn't my fault." Confidence grows. Ego defends. And the more you defend, the less you develop. Most people don't fail because they lack intelligence. They fail because they cannot tolerate looking foolish. They won't ask questions. They won't admit ignorance. They won't try something new in front of others. Because ego whispers, "If you fail, they will see you're not special." But here is the truth that frees you. You were never meant to be special. You were meant to become capable. And capability is built in humility. Humility is not weakness. It is openness. When you release the need to appear impressive, you unlock the ability to improve rapidly. Think about this. The fastest learners are beginners who know they are beginners. The slowest learners are amateurs pretending to be experts. Ego slows growth because it avoids feedback, and feedback is the furnace where excellence is forged. If you want an unbreakable mind, you must build a new relationship with criticism. Criticism is not an attack. It is information. If someone points out a weakness, you have two options. Option 1. Protect your pride. Option 2. Upgrade your skill. The ego always chooses protection. The unbreakable mind chooses evolution. This does not mean accepting every opinion. It means extracting value from useful input. Even harsh feedback can contain data, and data is power. The strongest individuals in any field share one trait. They obsess over improvement more than image. They would rather be exposed and grow than praised and stagnate. Ask yourself honestly, do you want to look strong, or do you want to become strong? Those are different goals. Looking strong requires control over perception. Becoming strong requires surrender to process. Ego also fears comparison. When someone succeeds near you, ego feels threatened. It interprets another person's growth as your loss. But growth is not a limited resource. Someone else's excellence does not diminish your potential. It reveals what is possible. Instead of envy, study. Instead of insecurity, analyze. Instead of shrinking, expand your standard. If they can do it, it proves the path exists. And if the path exists, you can walk it. Another hidden ego trap is the need to win every argument. When you argue to win, you stop listening. When you stop listening, you stop learning. The unbreakable mind values understanding over dominance. You do not need to defeat people in conversation. You need to refine your perspective. Sometimes being wrong is the most profitable outcome, if you are wise enough to admit it. Now let's go deeper. Ego hates struggle, because struggle reveals gaps, and gaps feel like weakness. But gaps are invitations. Every skill you admire once felt awkward to someone. Every expert once felt incompetent. The difference between those who rise and those who remain average is simple. One group tolerates the discomfort of being bad at something long enough to become good. The other group quits to preserve identity. If you quit to protect your ego, you preserve comfort, not potential. You must reframe embarrassment. Embarrassment is the cost of entry into mastery. If you are not occasionally embarrassed, you are not stretching far enough. Let that settle. The unbreakable mind is comfortable being seen trying publicly, failing visibly, improving slowly, because it knows identity is not tied to immediate success. Identity is tied to direction. Are you moving forward? If yes, you are winning, even when it looks messy. Another sign of ego is defensiveness when corrected. Notice your reaction the next time someone challenges you. Does your chest tighten? Does your voice rise? Do you mentally prepare counterarguments? That reaction is ego-protecting narrative. Pause instead. Ask, what can I learn here? That pause creates power, because emotional control precedes mental strength. You cannot grow if every uncomfortable emotion triggers reaction. The unbreakable mind responds. It does not react. Reaction is instinct. Response is training. And training requires awareness. From today forward, observe your ego without judging it. Notice when you want to impress. Notice when you want to avoid. Notice when you want to dominate. Then ask, what would growth choose? Sometimes growth chooses silence. Sometimes growth chooses apology. Sometimes growth chooses effort. But it never chooses stagnation. Ego builds walls. Growth builds capacity. You must decide which architecture you prefer for your life. Because ego feels powerful in the short term, but growth becomes powerful in the long term. And long-term strength is the only strength that matters. In the next chapter, we confront something even more dangerous than ego. Comfort. Part 3. The comfort illusion. Comfort feels safe, but comfort is rarely neutral. It either restores you or it slowly weakens you. Most people confuse peace with comfort. Peace is internal stability. Comfort is external ease. Peace makes you strong. Comfort, when overused, makes you fragile. There is a dangerous illusion in modern life. If it feels uncomfortable, something must be wrong. But discomfort is not danger. It is growth trying to happen. Think about physical training. When muscles are stressed, they tear slightly. That tearing is not injury, it is adaptation. The same principle applies to your mind. When you learn something new, your brain resists. When you step into uncertainty, your heart races. When you push your limits, you feel tension. That tension is not a warning sign. It is expansion. Yet most people retreat at the first sign of resistance. They feel awkward in a new skill, so they stop. They feel nervous speaking up, so they stay silent. They feel challenged in a relationship, so they withdraw. And slowly, their world shrinks. Comfort does not make you confident, it makes you dependent. Dependent on predictable routines, dependent on approval, dependent on circumstances aligning perfectly. But life does not operate on perfect alignment. It operates on uncertainty. If you require comfort to function, uncertainty will break you. The unbreakable mind trains in controlled discomfort, not reckless stress, not chaos, not self-destruction, but deliberate stretching. Small daily challenges that increase tolerance. Because tolerance builds resilience. Resilience builds confidence. And confidence builds freedom. Here is the truth. Your nervous system adapts to what you repeatedly expose it to. If you repeatedly avoid difficulty, your tolerance decreases. If you repeatedly face difficulty, your tolerance expands. Avoidance strengthens fear. Exposure weakens it. Every time you avoid a difficult conversation, it becomes bigger in your mind. Every time you delay action, it becomes heavier. But the moment you step toward it, the illusion collapses. Fear feeds on imagination. Action starves it. Comfort also disguises itself as productivity. You might stay busy. You might plan endlessly. You might research, prepare, organize. But if you are not stepping into visible risk, you are still in comfort. Growth lives on the edge of exposure, where people can see you try, where outcomes are uncertain, where failure is possible. That edge is where identity shifts, because identity changes when behavior changes under pressure. If you want to become courageous, you must act while afraid. If you want discipline, you must act while unmotivated. If you want resilience, you must endure temporary discomfort without escape. Waiting to feel ready is a comfort strategy. Readiness comes after action, not before. Let's confront something deeper. Many people cling to comfort because struggle once overwhelmed them. They associate challenge with pain. But avoiding all challenge does not prevent pain. It creates regret. And regret is a slow, heavy pain that compounds over time. The pain of growth is temporary. The pain of stagnation is cumulative. Choose your pain: temporary discomfort with expansion, or long-term discomfort with limitation. The unbreakable mind chooses short-term tension for long-term strength. It understands that stress, when applied wisely, is adaptation fuel. This does not mean constant hustle. Recovery is essential, but recovery is intentional. Comfort becomes dangerous only when it becomes default. Ask yourself, when was the last time you did something that scared you? When was the last time you failed publicly? When was the last time you attempted something you might not succeed at? If you cannot remember, you are likely operating inside a shrinking comfort zone. And shrinking zones create shrinking lives. Expansion is not dramatic. It is incremental. Speak once when you normally stay quiet. Wake up when the alarm rings the first time. Have the difficult conversation. Start the project before you feel confident. Run when you want to stop. These small acts compound. They send a message to your brain. We move toward difficulty, and your identity updates accordingly. I am someone who faces things. That belief is powerful, because the moment you believe you face things, you begin facing bigger things. Comfort is not evil. It is necessary for restoration. But when restoration becomes residence, strength decays. The unbreakable mind rests strategically, but lives courageously. And courage is not absence of fear. It is forward movement despite it. In the next chapter, we uncover the engine behind sustained growth. Discipline. Part 4. Discipline over motivation. Motivation is unreliable. It rises with emotion. It falls with discomfort. It depends on mood, environment, sleep, praise, weather. If your growth depends on motivation, your growth will be inconsistent. The unbreakable mind does not rely on motivation. It relies on discipline. Motivation says, I feel like doing it. Discipline says, I do it regardless. Motivation is emotional. Discipline is structural. And structure always outperforms emotion in the long run. Most people wait to feel ready. They wait for energy. They wait for clarity. They wait for confidence. But readiness is a myth created by fear. You do not feel confident before you act. You feel confident after you act consistently. Action builds evidence. Evidence builds belief. Belief builds identity. That is the order, not the other way around. The unbreakable mind understands something critical. Your future is shaped more by habits than by intentions. Intentions are temporary. Habits are automatic. If you rely on willpower every day, you will burn out. But if you design habits, you reduce friction. Discipline is not about forcing yourself violently. It is about reducing decision fatigue. Make fewer choices. Set fixed times. Remove distractions. Create non-negotiables. For example, if you decide every morning whether you will train, you will often negotiate with yourself. But if training is scheduled at 6 a.m. every weekday, the decision is already made. Energy is saved. Resistance is lower. Discipline is environmental design. Control what you can control. Your phone placement, your workspace, your sleep routine, your social influences. Environment shapes behavior more than motivation does. Another misconception: discipline is harsh. In reality, discipline creates freedom. When you are disciplined with money, you gain financial freedom. When you are disciplined with health, you gain physical freedom. When you are disciplined with focus, you gain creative freedom. Undisciplined behavior feels free in the moment, but it creates chains in the future. Eating impulsively feels free. Debt feels restrictive later. Avoiding effort feels easy. Regret feels heavy later. Discipline is choosing future strength over present comfort. And here is a powerful shift. Stop asking, how do I feel? Start asking, what does my standard require? Standards remove negotiation. If your standard is excellence, the action is obvious. If your standard is average, excuses are acceptable. Standards define identity, and identity defines consistency. You must raise your personal standards quietly, not publicly, not for applause, but internally. Decide the kind of person you are, then behave accordingly, even when no one is watching, especially when no one is watching. Because discipline practiced in private becomes confidence in public. The unbreakable mind keeps promises to itself, and self-trust is built through kept promises. Every time you say you will do something and follow through, your brain registers reliability. Every time you break a promise to yourself, your brain registers doubt. Self-doubt is often self-betrayal repeated. If you want more confidence, keep smaller promises. Start small. Wake up when you say you will. Finish what you start. Complete tasks fully. Small wins compound into strong identity. Another truth. Discipline is easier when your goals are clear. Vague goals create vague effort. Clear goals create directed action. Do not say, "I want to improve." Say, "I will read 20 pages daily." Do not say, "I want to get fit." Say, "I will train 4 times per week." Specificity removes ambiguity. Ambiguity feeds procrastination. The unbreakable mind also understands delayed gratification. You must become comfortable with working without immediate reward, because meaningful growth rarely pays instantly. Muscle builds slowly. Skill develops gradually. Reputation compounds quietly. But those who endure the quiet phase dominate later. Most quit in the invisible phase. The unbreakable mind thrives there. It finds satisfaction in progress, not applause. And here is the ultimate truth about discipline. It becomes easier over time. Not because tasks become easy, but because your identity shifts. At first, you force action. Later, action feels natural. You no longer debate whether to train. You train because that is who you are. You no longer debate whether to study. You study because that is your standard. Discipline evolves from effort to identity, and identity-based discipline is unshakable. Motivation will fluctuate. Emotion will fluctuate. Energy will fluctuate. But identity, once reinforced through repeated action, stabilizes behavior. In the next chapter, we confront the silent destroyer of mental strength. Fear. Part 5. Mastering fear. Fear is not your enemy. Misunderstood fear is. Fear is ancient. It was designed to protect you from danger, but your brain does not distinguish well between physical threat and social discomfort. To your nervous system, rejection can feel like death. Embarrassment can feel like danger. Failure can feel like loss of survival. But most of what you fear today will not kill you. It will stretch you. The unbreakable mind does not eliminate fear. It reinterprets it. Fear is energy. When your heart races before a challenge, that is activation. When your hands sweat before speaking, that is readiness. When your thoughts sharpen under pressure, that is focus. The same biology that creates anxiety also creates peak performance. The difference is interpretation. If you label the sensation as, "I am not capable," you shrink. If you label it as, "My body is preparing me," you rise. Your interpretation shapes your response. Most people try to wait until fear disappears. But fear rarely disappears before action. It fades after exposure. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is movement despite it. And courage, like discipline, can be trained. Start small. Speak when your voice trembles. Act before certainty. Submit the work before perfection. Every exposure weakens fear's grip. Avoidance strengthens it. Think about the things you once feared that are now normal. Driving, public interaction, new environments. Exposure normalized them. The same applies to bigger fears. The unbreakable mind deliberately practices exposure. It does not seek reckless danger. It seeks calculated discomfort. Because fear shrinks when confronted directly. Another truth: fear often hides behind perfectionism. Perfectionism sounds productive, but at its core, it is fear of judgment. If it's perfect, no one can criticize me. But perfection delays progress, and progress builds competence. Competence builds confidence. Confidence reduces fear. Waiting for perfect conditions keeps fear alive. Action weakens it. There is also fear of success. Yes, success. Because success brings visibility, responsibility, expectation. Growth requires expansion of identity, and expansion feels unstable at first. You may sabotage progress unconsciously to return to familiarity. Familiar pain feels safer than unfamiliar growth. But the unbreakable mind accepts instability as part of evolution. Growth is uncomfortable because it requires change. Change challenges certainty, and certainty feels safe. But safety is not always growth. Now understand this. Fear magnifies in imagination. It shrinks in reality. When you delay action, your mind creates exaggerated scenarios, worst-case outcomes, humiliation, collapse. But once you act, clarity replaces imagination. Reality is almost always less catastrophic than anticipation. The mind is dramatic. Reality is practical. The unbreakable mind shortens the gap between fear and action. It does not overthink. It moves. Because action creates information. And information replaces uncertainty. Another powerful reframe. Fear signals importance. You rarely fear things that do not matter. If you are afraid to try, it likely means you care. And caring means potential growth. Instead of asking, "How do I eliminate fear?" ask, "What skill do I need to reduce this fear?" Fear of speaking? Train communication. Fear of failure? Increase preparation. Fear of rejection? Increase exposure. Fear is often a skill gap, not a destiny. Fill the gap. Shrink the fear. The unbreakable mind also understands worst-case thinking properly. Ask yourself, if this fails, what truly happens? Most fears collapse under logical examination. Embarrassment fades. Rejection passes. Failure teaches. Rarely does a single attempt destroy your life, but inaction slowly erodes it. Inaction builds regret, and regret is heavier than fear. Fear is temporary. Regret lingers. You must choose which discomfort you prefer: momentary courage or long-term what if. The strongest individuals feel fear frequently. They simply act anyway. And every time they act, they strengthen identity. I face things. That identity becomes armor. Eventually, fear becomes familiar. It no longer paralyzes. It energizes. And that is mastery. In the next chapter, we bring everything together. Identity. Because identity is the foundation of the unbreakable mind. Part 6. Identity. The final transformation. Everything you have heard so far, growth, ego, comfort, discipline, fear, connects to one core truth. You do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your identity. Identity is the story you repeat about yourself. I'm not confident. I procrastinate. I'm bad with money. I'm just not disciplined. Every repeated sentence becomes internal law, and your brain obeys that law. If you believe you are inconsistent, you will act inconsistently. If you believe you quit under pressure, you will search for exits. If you believe you are resilient, you will endure longer. Behavior follows belief, and belief is programmable. The unbreakable mind is not built by forcing action randomly. It is built by upgrading identity intentionally. Instead of saying, "I want to be disciplined," say, "I am becoming disciplined." Instead of, "I hope I'm confident," say, "I am someone who practices courage." Identity grows through evidence. Each small action is a vote. Every time you wake up when you said you would, vote. Every time you face fear, vote. Every time you choose growth over ego, vote. You are casting ballots daily for the type of person you become, and the majority wins. If most of your votes support avoidance, avoidance becomes identity. If most of your votes support courage, courage becomes identity. This is powerful because it removes drama. You do not need a life-changing moment. You need consistent votes. Small, quiet, repeated. Identity change is subtle. One disciplined morning does not transform you, but 100 disciplined mornings do. One brave conversation does not redefine you, but 50 brave conversations do. Consistency carves identity, and identity sustains consistency. That is the cycle of the unbreakable mind. Now, understand something deeper. Your environment reinforces identity. If you surround yourself with people who normalize mediocrity, your standards lower. If you surround yourself with people who normalize growth, your standards rise. Identity is social. Choose your influences carefully. Protect your mental inputs. What you consume becomes internal language. What becomes internal language becomes belief. What becomes belief becomes behavior. Guard it. Another truth: you must forgive your past self. Shame traps identity. If you constantly replay past mistakes, you reinforce the old story. The unbreakable mind learns from the past, but does not live there. You are not your worst decision. You are your next one. Identity is forward-looking. Each day is an opportunity to cast new votes. And here is the ultimate shift. Stop chasing outcomes. Chase character. Outcomes fluctuate. Character compounds. If you build character, discipline, courage, humility, resilience, results follow naturally. But if you chase results without building character, success feels unstable because it has no foundation. The unbreakable mind builds foundation first, brick by brick, habit by habit, choice by choice, and eventually something extraordinary happens. You no longer need constant motivation. You no longer fear discomfort intensely. You no longer collapse under criticism. You no longer negotiate with fear the same way. Not because life became easier, but because you became stronger. Strength is not loud. It is calm. It is steady. It is controlled. You walk into challenges with measured confidence. not arrogance, not denial, but certainty that you can adapt. And adaptation is true power. Because no matter what happens, success, failure, rejection, uncertainty, you know one thing: you can train, you can adjust, you can grow. And that belief makes you dangerous in the best possible way. Unbreakable does not mean untouchable. It means flexible, resilient, responsive, capable of bending without breaking. From this moment forward, remember, you are not fixed. You are not finished. You are not limited to who you were. You are in construction. And construction is beautiful when intentional. Choose growth over ego, discipline over motivation, action over avoidance, character over comfort, identity over outcome. And if you do that consistently, the mind you build will carry you through anything. End of the book. The Unbreakable Mind.